Hi guys, Kaiwaza with you. Welcome back to the Cheap Lounge. We're at Season 4, Episode 15, where we talk about cheap lounge records, inexpensive thrift store, dollar bin records that I have picked up in the lounge category, easy listening, elevator music, beautiful music, call it what you will. I broadcast these records on my radio station, Moody Mood Music, which is on live365.com. That's linked below. You can check that out anytime, night or the day, to hear further selections from these albums I'm going to show you today, and hundreds and hundreds of other easy listening records covering all the sort of nuances, beautiful and strange, in the easy listening category. Get yourself a beverage. I'm having some electrolyte water, actually. We're going to start off today with, well, a wonderful group. Many of us in the easy listening sort of community are familiar with. That is the Hollyridge Strings, but not very familiar with this record. Hollyridge Strings, under the direction of Mr. Stu Phillips, was rather well known for doing quite a number of easy listening string albums. I think particularly well known for the Beatles, covering the Beatles. I think they did 4, albums covering Beatles music. They also did a really, really wonderful Christmas album. If you don't have that, Hollywood Strings Christmas is very good. But this one I don't think I was as familiar with, and I was kind of surprised to see it in I don't remember exactly where I got this now, but I was excited to find it for cheap in a dollar bin or thrift store. Hits of the 70s. Now, what do I say about the Hollyridge Strings? I mean, if you're not familiar with them, it is easy listening. It's music you would have heard in a mall or whatever, shopping. But the Stu Phillips arrangements were kind of known for having a lot of reverb on them, the heavy use of string pizzicato usage. And in this album, what makes it kind of unique from the other ones is that there's also the use of a wordless chorus quite a bit. And I found that addition really nice with his style. It's a very nostalgic sound. These are just pop songs that were popular in the 70s. 1972 actually is when this came out. Nice theme from Shaft. It's Impossible. One of my personal favorites, the song It's Too Late. Carole King, right? Did that originally. I remember that song. Personal story. Personal regression here. It's too late, baby, now it's too late. Yeah, I was a little kid in elementary school in upstate New York in a small town called Horseheads when this song was popular. And we used to go to the pool, the community, city, town pool, whatever, in the summertime. And they had loudspeakers, playing the radio, I don't know, whatever. That song would come on frequently. And I remember one time in particular, my parents, because we usually rode our bikes down to the pool, but one time our parents was taking us to the pool because I think we were going to go someplace in the evening out to dinner or something, I don't know. So they drove us down to the pool, my brother and I distinctly remember this song, It's Too Late, Carole King, coming on the radio while we were driving on the way down, and me as a little kid, not understanding the lyrics really or whatever, but just knowing this song from hearing it. And I thought to myself, boy, this is really the sound of going to the pool. I mean, this song means going to the pool. I don't know. So I guess I still have a flashback when I hear that song. So I'm always happy to find a new rendition of It's Too Late by someone else. interesting record. I didn't know how this one was going to be, and I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised. It's the Dick Dick Hyman Piano Concerto. The album is called Concerto Electro, but is a performance of the Dick Hyman Piano Concerto. I was familiar with Dick Hyman primarily really as an easy listening artist, kind of jazz / easy listening. I think he did a lot of music in that kind of borderline, could be jazz, kind of easy listening music. Now, he was a classically trained performer. He was a composer, arranger, conductor. He did it all, had quite a long career leading his own band and doing a lot of backup for big name artists, big name singers, in the 50s and 60s, did solo work, recorded a number of things on the Command label, both as a pianist, as an orchestra leader, and on the Moog synthesizer, which was kind of getting to be a thing at the time. But this one is performed on the Baldwin Electro piano. It says Rock, Jazz, Rhythm, and Symphony Orchestra. In the end, I guess that was actually kind of an accurate description. This is a classical piece. It's one album, 3 movements. And I didn't really know what I was going to hear, but I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. I would say it's not classical in the sense of like you're going to listen to somebody playing the harpsichord in an 18th century drawing room, that kind of thing. Nor is it, if you think of like real modern, I'm not a classical music person, so I'm sorry if this is like just shows my ignorance or is like insulting or whatever. This is just my thoughts as a non-classical person. It's not that traditional sort of classical music, 18th century, 19th century, that sort of thing. Neither is it that sort of what I guess would be called more contemporary classical music. Sometimes it sounds sort of like polyphonic cacophony, like, what is this? I don't know what I'm listening to. I would say this kind of more or less to me sounds like ballet music, like if you were writing something for a Broadway musical or a ballet, where during the parts where people are not singing, but there's some sort of staged dancing and movement happening, and maybe incidental music. It kind of gives me that vibe, because it doesn't, to me, just listening to it, it doesn't sound classical necessarily, although what does that really mean? It sounds like music for the stage. I don't know. I guess it is listenable. One of the movements gets really kind of heavy, but the other couple movements I did upload onto Moody Mood Music. They sound sort of like soundtrack music or something. It's nice. The electro piano, I don't get it's sounding any different than a regular piano. It doesn't sound electronic or Moog synthesized or anything to me, and the orchestra is just like kind of a standard with strings and brass and whatever. I guess it is an electric piano, but it doesn't particularly sound electric, so nothing is really electro sounding about it to me. But it definitely does not sound like what I would think of as classical music. The one thing that it's a nice gatefold, by the way. The one thing I have a question about, and if anybody knows, I'd love for you to tell me, because I couldn't find any information on here about this. But the cover, the front and the back, it's sort of like a paint by number, I think. And there are, blank things that haven't been painted in. They have the numbers, which I guess is how a paint by number would have been. But I just don't quite get the connection. Like, why did they do a paint by number motif? I mean, what were they trying to say? If you know, let me know, because I don't know. say the album is from 1970, by the way. And just kind of quickly, here's one, the Honey Dreamers. I wasn't familiar with them, but apparently they've been around since like the 40s in some capacity, a vocal group. This was called Outer West from 1964. A new look at the old roundup. And I just thought, before I digitized this, I thought, oh, this is going to be like Western songs and yippee-yi-yay. And am I really not in the mood for this? But let's just digitize this thing and get some selections up on the station because it's been hanging out for a while and it's turn to get digitized. So I wasn't really in the mood for it. I love the illustration here. But boy, was I surprised. It was not at all what I was thinking. But like I said, I didn't really read the liner notes or whatever. I just said, oh, it's Western songs. It's Western songs, but it's very, very cool, jazzy, big band influenced kind of vocal takes on these tunes. You wouldn't even, I mean, if you didn't know they were Western songs, you wouldn't know they were Western songs at all from their renditions. Great stuff. Really loved it. Really enjoyed it. I'm heading for the last roundup. Get along, little doggy, get along, get along, get along, little doggy, get along, get along, get along. We're all my mule and I, we haven't a care. A couple of budget label records, Brand X records we're going to address kind of quickly. Not much to say about this. It's just interesting enough to mention to me. This is Crown Records, Swingin' Dancers. We do love the cover here. Love the cover. This is pretty straightforward, a big band record. They talk about, saluting Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Benny Goodman, blah, 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 the usual culprits. These are just big band songs. I was pretty familiar with most all of them. They're not the exact arrangements that the artist originally did. They're not imitating those arrangements like Hawaiian War Chant, the Dorsey song. It's quite different. They're good. They're just different. What was kind of interesting to me is I'm sure these songs, these tracks were, borrowed and chopped up and used on other Brand X albums of big band music or just thrown onto some other instrumental recordings or whatever. But the two of them were kind of interesting to me. Was Swingin' Dancers it's called. It's actually a rendition of Stompin' at the Savoy, but they call it Swingin' Dancers. And then the very last track is Stomping at the Savoy. However, it's like an almost 6-minute track, and it's very clearly two different versions by two different bands of Stompin' at the Savoy that they just kind of spliced together with just a little, there's a little bit of separation, but almost no separation, that they just spliced those two together. Because I thought when I was recording, I was like, oh, it's over. And then like, oh, no, it's not. It kind of kicked back in. And it's a different rendition. So I thought that was strange. Like, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Does anybody else have any other versions like on Crown or one of these Brand X of Stompin' at the Savoy where they've done that? I mean, does anybody else have this thing where they just splice the two together? It's very unusual. I don't know why they did it, but it's a cute record. We like it. There's no date on it, and there's no artist listed. They didn't even bother to make up make up a big band to say it was by. It's just by nobody. Another budget label, Diplomat Records, the successor of, I guess, Spinorama and Promenade, if I'm getting that right, out of Newark, New Jersey. Diplomat did a whole series of Monterey brass records on the heel of the success of Herb Alpert and Tijuana Brass, of course, which is a huge international sensation. And everybody jumped on the bandwagon. All the major labels did imitation Tijuana Brass groups, and all the budget labels, of course, did their own versions of Tijuana Brass records, some better than others. I always give credit to, who's it, Somerset, that did Los Nortes Americanos. They're actually really good. They're really good. Mexicali Brass, touch and go on Crown. Diplomat did the the Monterey Brass. And the first few albums that they had the Monterey Brass doing were the direct takeoffs from Herb Alpert, like the Taste of Honey and Tijuana Taxi and Lonely Bull, plus, you know, a couple of Tijuana hits on each album and then some filler songs. But they were pretty decent, you know. They didn't sound like the Tijuana Brass, but I mean, they were brass based, they were imitation groups, and they were pretty decent. I think after they ran through the first 3 or 4 Tijuana Brass hits, and they sort of dissipated in their quality or whatever. Not that they were ever great to begin with, but they really went downhill. Some of the later ones they did after those initial Herb Alpert Tijuana Brass imitation ones, where they were still cashing in on the idea of it being, you know, brass. Like this one, Standing Room Only. There's no Tijuana hit songs on here at all. Not related at all to anything Tijuana. And it's, I would barely say it qualifies as a brass album. I mean, there's basically 2 horns. It's a small combo, except for 1 or 2 songs where they beefed it up a little bit. Mostly, it's it's a small combo of a couple of horns and some kind of electric keyboard or organ and a electric guitar and, you know, rhythm section. That's it. 1 or 2 of the songs didn't really even have brass on it. It just kind of has the guitar and the organ. I'm going to assume at this point, going forward with Montgomery Brass Record, Montgomery, I can't get it out of my head. Monterey Brass Records after the first few, a lot of these tracks are probably farmed out to other Diplomat Records and other labels individually to go on, like, you know, the fake brass ring record, or the whoever, the International Pop Stars Orchestra or whatever. Just, they would farm some of these songs out. One of them I know, I think, was on a Dan and Dale record, Sleepwalk Guitars of Dan and Dale, which was on Diplomat. Having said that, yeah, it's pretty crappy, and I love it because I love crappy stuff. I love good stuff, and I love the crappy, cheap stuff. I don't know. I just love it. I'm very taken in by the Monterey Brass. Okay, last record today. Not much of, it's not really about the music, it's about the artist. I'm just curious. Again, I should have called this episode the John Charles is stupid and is asking questions and doesn't know what he's talking about episode on half of these. if you know lounge music, whatever, you're probably familiar with Keely Smith. She was married to Louis Prima for a while. Was she married to Frank Sinatra, or did she just have an affair with him? I don't remember, but anyway, well known, singer in the whole lounge era. She and Louis Prima, I mean, they did Las Vegas for quite a while. She was kind of in that group. The reason I'm bringing this up, okay, I'm sorry if this is this could be considered offensive topic, but we're talking about this album is 1965, so we are talking about the 50s and the 60s here. I always knew Keely Smith, I'd always heard it said that she was part Native American, part Indian. That was part of her identity, and actually kind of used it as part of her shtick sometimes too. But that was like a for real thing, right? Like anything I'd ever read was like her grandmother, I think, was Cherokee. I mean, you know how that is when people say that and then it really isn't, true or whatever. But I mean, she definitely looked like she could have been substantially Native American at some level, and she said that she was for the longest time. In fact, Dot Records, there is a record on Dot with her in some sort of costume of Native American, and the liner notes talk all about her grandmother being full Cherokee and blah, 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 blah. I know there's a song with Louis Prima, I think off of their budget Brand X stuff that they did, because they did a number of recordings on there, where he calls her that Indian woman. I mean, when they're singing together, he refers to her as that Indian woman, and she was, I think, often with intention sort of depicted partially that way. Why I'm bringing all this up is because this record, I'm going to read you the liner notes on that old Black Magic, because I was like, what? When I read this. A lot of people, when they write about Keely Smith, refer to her being Indian. That is an outright split-tongue lie, of course. Keely is no closer to being Indian than a secondhand teepee is to being the Sands Hotel in glamorous Las Vegas. Keely once had a beaded souvenir of Yuma belt, but that's about it. What Indian blood may once have flowed in those veins has long since been replaced with high-octane, extra zippy liquid zing. Any lady who can move from being one of Norfolk, Virginia's Joe Brown radio gang to a Las Vegas lounge without dropping a quarter note can't be classified with the Pinto set. And it goes on, but I was like, are they serious? Is this like a joke or what? I'm really confused in this moment. And then I kind of noticed on this one, I don't know if it seemed very intentional to me on some of her record covers, that she is intentionally, by the record labels, being presented as very dark-skinned. They're emphasizing that in a lot of the photographs of her. And this definitely is not. This is kind of doing the opposite. And I mention that because, of course, we're talking about an era or a time when there were, people passing all these sort of, I guess they're sort of taboo things or whatever now, but at the time it was a thing that happened, and some of the African American artists of that time, like Nat King, was it Nat King Cole? Or Johnny Mathis, Johnny Mathis, right? They didn't want people to know he was black when he first started recording him. They wanted everybody to think he was Italian American, so they didn't want to put his picture out there. The record label. But a lot of these people, like Lena Horne, some artists, African American artists like that, on some of their record covers would be portrayed, even Pearl Bailey, I noticed on some of hers, would be portrayed as being much fairer skinned than they were in real life. When you see film or whatever of them, they were, made to be lighter. Whereas Keely Smith, I noticed, was apparently made to be darker. I don't know, or whether she actually was of a darker complexion. I guess she's still alive, I think. No, 2017 she passed away. And then there's this record. I'm like, so I'm confused. You know, does anybody know anything more about her? Like, I really don't know. And I can't find anything online. It's one of those things where I don't know whether things have been changed by family members where people are, you know how that happens sometimes in the internet. It's weird. Like, you know something happened, like you witnessed something happening, or you knew about something, and then you try and find out, and you knew there was stuff, you were reading about it, and then you try and find it again, and sometimes it's gone, like from the interwebs. I can't find anything on the interwebs about Keely Smith, other than they all say that she was part Cherokee, that it's everywhere. So I'm like, did they go through a period where they were trying to whitewash that for some reason? Because this is, I don't know if any of her other records addressed saying that her being Native American was a lie. Was this the only one where they did that? Does anybody know anything about this? I'm just putting it out there. Like, this is fascinating. I don't know. It's a mystery. I'm just curious. Inquiring minds want to know. I mean, what difference does it make now, I guess? But like, it blew me away when I read this. I'm like, what? But everything says that she's Native American. She was saying she was Native American. Like, what? Y'all were really portraying her that way too. Like, I'm confused.
Oh, and sun comes shining through. When you're crying, you bring on the rain. Stop your sighing. Won't you be happy again? When you're smiling, keep on smiling. And the whole world smiles with you. While you buy a wedding ring for my finger.
Am I just missing the humor here completely or something? Like, was this a joke? Was this meant to be like satire? I don't know. I'm confused. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you want to check out Moody Mood Music, you want to hear more music from these albums and hundreds of other albums, check out the radio station. That's going to be linked below. You can listen to that anytime, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Moody Mood Music on live365.com. Thank you guys for watching. Comment on any of the subjects we've been talking about here today, any other music or artists or whatever. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, thank you guys for watching.